Okay. So Terrence, can you introduce yourself?
Sure.
So this is for the benefit of Dana and Jared. Okay.
Sure. So Terrence Coles, I'm currently a chief revenue officer at a AI tech startup down in San Diego, but come out of advertising, media, production, 30 plus years. Long story, but from AOL all the way through digital media, raise money, working company, corporate America. Jared, I definitely relate to your story, and generally find myself as the only one looking anything like me in rooms that I'm in. But also, Kevin and I have been working on various projects to produce digital media all the way through virtual reality, augmented reality, AI, whatever you want to call it. Really trying to give some of those skills. Even started basically at digital. We taught some classes on just basic digital media skills. I think we started with digital citizenship and moved our way all the way to VR. But now I think it's more a matter of opportunity for projects where we can work, with a group of folks in order to produce it. I know this was particularly about trying to do a project for Black History Month on the 28th. I believe the conversation now is to turn that virtual, if at all. And then looking at, well, what else can we do from a project perspective? I have needs that come up on a pretty regular basis on projects I'm working on where we could put people to work. It's just more of an opportunity to figure out who's capable, what their skill sets are, and how do they match up with some of the skills necessary to really be in the next level of production, right? I mean, that's really what I'm hoping to do is, let folks know, to your point, Jared, accountability, right? Number one story is you got to show up and you got to be willing to be coachable, learn, but showing up to half the game and then taking direction and sort of learning from that piece, right? So I think that's the big thing we have to be able to establish is like who's capable and able to be at that level, and how do we incorporate that? So certainly happy to see where that could go, but short version of my story. How are you, Dana? Nice to meet you.
Hey, Dana.
Hello. I'm so glad I could make it. I didn't see this Zoom invite before, but I'm glad that I could jump on.
Good.
Yeah. Oh, good. Oh, good.
We're glad you're here. I'm happy to be here as well. Thanks again, Kevin.
I think you're on mute, Kevin.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Yeah.
So I can go.
Dana,
You want me to go ahead and repeat myself, Kevin?
please, Jared.
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with it.
And give us a little bit about what you heard from the Mentor Mesh meeting yesterday, because that's where we met. And mentorship is really the theme of this Zoom, and then we'll delve a little bit with the time we have remaining with Terrence for a project that we're looking to crew up for February.
Okay. Yeah, I'll shorten it what I was. So I'll give everybody the background. Like I said, Gerard is my name. I know it's hard. So I go by Rod for anybody. It's a lot easier. If you want to call me Rod, I do it at work. My dad did it for years at work. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because my name's been mispronounced since I was a kid. However, I get it. It's all good. But here's the thing that I started off, speaking of kid, right? My parents were big about academics, about doing the right thing. So as I got closer to, I'm trying to think. So was it middle? I think so. In my early years, I was involved in many programs in Indianapolis, Indiana, from the Center for Leadership Development, which was hosted by and sponsored by Eli Lilly and Indianapolis Power and Light at the time. I had mentors there. It was math, science, taught us life skills, resume writing, etc. So then I was involved in the Minority Engineering Program of Indianapolis, Minority Engineering Advancement Program. And then also I was a part of 100 Black Men of America. I went to the Botellion program. And I was also mentored. Unfortunately, I got in trouble in, I think it was either middle school. Yeah, it was middle school. I was in school suspension. My in-school suspension teacher happened to be an Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, and they had Indianapolis had the Junior Alpha Men, which is a mentorship program that he had me get involved in. So I was exposed to that early on as well. Furthermore, took that next step to college. I ended up mentoring. Because of my involvement in athletics, mentoring and tutoring kids, from the Boys and Girls Club locally and other programs there. And then I was also, so that's where mentorship took on a form for me, where people were mentoring me, older players. I had teachers that I would reach out to And that's where I realized that mentorship was a two-way street. Then as I got into my professional years, I always had a champion, somebody who I really hooked, was on their right hip at all times to ask questions. So a good friend of mine, Dave Androsco, was a mentor of mine coming out the gates early in my career and really helped me prepare my career early. So then I started giving back to others that way. And I also, while in Minneapolis, was a part of the the Rites of Passage program, African Rites of Passage program. So similar to the 100 Black Men of America, taking kids that aren't particularly at risk, but they everybody's at risk, but they're not particularly at risk. Want to keep them on the right track. A lot of them went to like Princeton, Stanford, et cetera. So we wanted to keep them on that way. But then I also was involved with a gentleman named Winfred Payne, who was an ex-felon from Chicago, Black Panther, who I involved with on North Minneapolis. He had a program where he had a community center there in North Minneapolis, and he was really giving back to keep those kids off the street. So I helped him at the community center as well. And then I also have mentors in corporate. So that's where the mentor mesh comes in. You can't do this journey on your own. You have to have people to help hold you accountable. You have to be accountable, one, have integrity, one, yourself, but you have to have people to make sure they hold your feet to the fire. So I always make sure when I go anywhere, I look for people to help me navigate, because I struggled early on navigating, one, not only the culture of Minnesota where I lived for 20 years, but just the culture of the corporate within Minnesota. And then doing the right thing, not being a 21-year-old college kid anymore, athlete, having that whatever you want to say, mentality to think that, the world owes me something as opposed to shifting my whole paradigm. So I've always had mentors in corporate, and that's where mentor mesh comes in, is that no matter what I'm on one side, I'm in human resources, but somebody else is in product. That doesn't mean that they can't give me perspective and vice versa. So we all have a value, intrinsic and extrinsic. And I believe that is paramount, that you have to see that. And one of my two biggest principles in life that I was taught through all this, through my parents, everything, was one, be accountable. I don't deal with people that aren't accountable and point fingers. And two, you have to have integrity, period. End of story.
Wow.
You're right. If you're right, you're right. If you're wrong, you're wrong, but just make sure you hold yourself accountable.
Jared, you just now shifted my focus for February 28th. I really want to talk about mentorship. I don't believe a lot of the people that I've been talking to in the last 2 to 3 months about this event on February 28th really do understand the core principles of mentorship. Because nothing that Terrence and I have done thus far has been anything but mentorship. And a lot of people don't, I think, understand that. So, with the time we have remaining, Dana, can you introduce yourself and a little bit about how we've met and what you've learned thus far from me about anything connected to February 28th?
Yes. So I started working with Kevin at the beginning of this year because my mom is a principal and she knew Makita, who introduced me to Kevin. I just graduated from Biola University with a degree in cinema and media arts. And it was
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was there that I really found my passion for not only storytelling, but having equity and diversity in everything that we make, and just having stories that represent what real life looks like, having stories that represent the people that I grew up with and the people that I see their stories, and not just the same cookie cutter thing that we've been seeing in entertainment for years. I worked a lot with my theater company, and I worked a lot with the film company, and I've been very fortunate that Kevin has allowed me to work on these projects. He's taught me a lot about, what it takes to get a project made and what it takes to get a project up off the ground, how many meetings you have to go to, and how you have to show up to them, because you could be the only person in that room that looks like you. And you could be the only voice that can change the trajectory of how something's going to go, and just how important it is to be a person in that room and how special that is.
Wow. Thank you, Dana. You've restored my faith in what it is that I believe mentorship is meant to me. And, with the few minutes we have left, I want to reconvene around what can we boil down from all the things I've put into a abstract for something called one verse, or recognizing our history makers, past, present, and future, to maybe redirecting it to something that can connect to the people on this call, because we did show up, and there are a lot of other people, I think, who want to do something, but I'm not sure it's the same thing we want to do. So I want to leave Terrence with the last couple of minutes so that I can share this video with those people who can rally around maybe the spirit of a new focus for February 28th, so that we can walk away from that event, maybe pushing us in a new direction for some things that we can actually connect to the mentees that we're going to meet.
No, and I just want to say, first and foremost, Dana, congratulations on graduating, and congratulations on showing up, right? And I know it's hard, it's different, right? And what you said really resonated with me. Probably when I was your age, I didn't realize how much it took to get anything done, right? I thought you just, hey, you show up with a camera and you shoot something and it gets made, right? And I didn't realize, the thing you said that was important was pre-production, right? I mean, if you look at the label that Kevin put on all of these meetings where people necessarily haven't shown up, it says pre-production, right? And so I would say a lot of people want to play ball, right? A lot of people want to be in a game and aren't willing to do the work, aren't willing to be accountable to what it takes to do the work. So what we've learned, we used to just show up. I used to show up with a camera, and we used to just be like, hey, look, we're here at Compton High School. I got the camera, I got the kids and all the rest. And we couldn't quite get the product out from that, right? So we've done a lot of stuff just showing up. So Kevin, I agree with you 100%. We've been mentors probably at best. Production has probably suffered because, we've been just showing up trying to make sure we're an example without necessarily putting the framework in place and the objectives in place for what we want to get out of it. So I would say this, if we look at February 28th, there's an opportunity to pull off a virtual event. Kevin has a framework, we could talk about one verse, we could talk about, the contributions, past, present, and future. But I think what I'm hearing from this is that is subject matter for what we want to achieve in the long run. I think February 28th is about trying to encourage people to show up, be present, be willing to be mentored, and have that dialogue. I think from what I'm seeing right here, that's the most powerful thing that I'm hearing is Gerard, you showing up, right? And your story, my background story, my backstory, the place I'm probably connected to you guys is my parents were educators. So I had an opportunity, there was an expectation that I would succeed from an educational perspective that would give me an advantage. And so, there's somebody who said, hey, they were working on this educational thing about integration of the schools from the educator perspective. And my mom was one of the first teachers to integrate schools in 1963 in Norfolk, Virginia. So again, I just saw that growing up. Didn't really realize the impact and what that means in terms of how you got to pass that on. And I've probably been working through all this mentorship and the rest but I've never said it, right? Yeah. I show up like, oh, I'm producing, but I haven't said that really what I'm showing up for is because somebody showed up for me. I didn't have any expectation. I just show up for other people just to give them that opportunity, right? So that's maybe the way to say what's connecting people, maybe, and again, I'll just leave it with that, right? Just take that story, because to your point, Kevin, that's what we have, right? What we have right now, to your point, Kevin calls it the coalition of the willing, right? The coalition of the willing are the people who are just willing to show up, willing to try to do something, and willing to get on a path. And I think sometimes we get all caught up in the end result. We don't necessarily engage the coalition of the willing to bring them along to get to an end result. So therefore our end results have been lacking, right? So again, I think it's the journey, what I'm seeing today, right? I'm motivated, Dana, that you showed up and you owned up to, hey, I wasn't here, but here's why I'm here, and you still showed up. It would have been easy for you to say, hey, I already missed the first part of the meeting. Yo, Kev, I ain't gonna make this meeting. It's cool, whatever, right? That could have been, that was the easy way to go. No. But to show up on this call with people you don't know and cop to that is important. And I want to acknowledge that, and I want you to understand that's growth. Right? So I appreciate you being willing to be accountable. My hardest thing, and I'll share myself, hard for me to be accountable for the negatives. Everybody's cool to be accountable when it's the good stuff. Hard to show up and take the L. And I think that's what we all have to recognize. And if you get past that, right, to your point, Gerard, an accountability partner who will hold you to the fire to say, you said you were going to be here, you weren't. Hey, man, what's up? Here's what happened. Is this still important to you? Is this still the path that you're on or not? If you are, that's probably not the way you're going to get there. Not trying to negatively impact anyone, but trying to help people learn so they can show up and be more accountable and be more accepting of that sort of introspection and taking that from other folks. So I just will put it there that that's what I see that we can get, even whatever the product.
Terrence, can I borrow 30 seconds from you, because Haley just joined us from the California State University Entertainment Alliance. Haley, can you share with us just a few seconds of what your role is and what you think is the most important thing that's lacking from student success to your initiatives? Because that's what we really want to focus on right now.
Yeah,
Sure.
wow. First off, that was an amazing place to jump in on, and fully loved everything that you were sharing and agree with. So I'm Haley. I work with the CSU Entertainment Alliance. We're an initiative that is meant to help all 23 of the CSU campuses that are across California. So it's a big job with limited resources and limited human power behind it, but we're doing the best that we can with that these days. And our job is basically to create opportunities for students to enter the entertainment industry who don't have, the uncle or the person who's already there, getting them into school, getting them into businesses, etc. So that's our role, and we do it a number of ways. Free summer housing when people intern in LA during the summer. We do an internship course. We do networking events, Ask Me Anythings, panels for folks to learn about different industries as they're trying to figure things out in their own careers. So we approach it as many ways as we can. And Kevin, tell me your question again.
Well, I think you've nailed what I want to take away from today is how can we focus on student needs or lack of things that are meshing to a place where students can actually benefit from it more than just panels and workshops. I mean, what are the things that you think people are really needing as they try and graduate and get into workforce?
Being paid for their internships. I think so many of our students are not, they're either already working to survive school while they're doing it, or they go into it's just the financial barrier of doing an unpaid working situation is ridiculous at this point. We're working pretty hard with somebody who's working in the state of California to rewrite the descriptions of what entertainment jobs are across the state so that people can apply for federal funding to do apprenticeships and things like that, and internships, so that it's not coming out of the company's pocket, because there's always backlash with that. But it's tough because people want to be able to train interns and apprentices and such, and don't have the funding to pay for it, and students don't have the means or the funding to make that happen for free. So
do they have co-ops?
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
Well, and Haley, one of the things that we're going to rally around is a new entity that we've just met. I just put it in the chat box. And Dana is from the tree of relationships from this organization. It's actually connected to the mayor's office in the city of LA. They were formerly partnered with Evolve Entertainment Fund. Are you familiar with them?
Yep.
Yeah. So we're hoping to take up some of the things that I guess didn't happen with Evolve. They're no longer connected to this program with the city of LA. And so we're now trying to, Dana is a referral from the person who manages the grant. And Dana is a 21-year-old graduate from a university in LA. And we're trying to help them take a tranche of dollars, as well as a database of 8,000 students who have qualified, or not even students, 18 to 24-year-old people who are now qualified for subsidies. They're getting paid 20 hours of training to hopefully be onboarded for another 100 hours of subsidized workforce. at $15 an hour. And that's not a lot of money, but at least it starts to connect to some of the issues or the holes that you've just mentioned about making sure that people do have at least some of the needs to be involved in a pipeline program. So that's where we're going to rally around on the 28th, is to try to meet as many of the organizations who have already been funded, who have some of these 18 to 24-year-old people, and try to get them connected to mentors and get them connected to projects and to unlock those dollars that they have. So that's what we're looking to do on the 28th now, is to really focus on meeting up with those people who are qualified to get paid to earn and learn and get connected, beyond their subsidized training. So Terrence has got to leave, but if Terrence, if you have anything that you want to say based on what Haley mentioned, is her discovery of things that she wants to make sure that we solve.
No, look, I think the two things. One, money is definitely a piece, right? And we need to find a way to connect those dots. Two, I think there's got to be a way to connect the dots on a path, right? So as you said, you're trying to get different definitions of what qualifies to get money. And I think you're onto something, because again, in my experience, entertainment, I'll use Dana, use the example. You graduated from cinema, film school, theater, you have skills, and I'm sure you'd like to go put them to use. Kevin, as well as I know, you talk to Ted, Milner, and all the rest, the first gig you're going to get is not that. You're going to be getting somebody's coffee, you're going to be showing up, but you're going to be able to show up in the right room so you can see what's happening. And you have to be willing to do that, right? And I mean, in my world, I would be happy to get on a set for free, but I had the time because I was waiting tables at night. And that's how I subsidized being work for free, do the rest until you have. Now, everybody doesn't have that. So I definitely understand the issues, but there has to be a path or pathways so that people can see, okay, what do you have to do for this $15? What are the jobs that'll qualify? And then what are the kind of projects that we can put into place? As an example, if we're, the 28th is a project, we have an opportunity to produce a virtual broadcast. There's time required for that broadcast. And that's the work product. Really, we should have 10, 20 hours worth of work between now and then, plus a day of. And if we could quantify that, I mean, we've been trying hard. Can you get 4 people, do this pre-production, go through 10, 20 hours and shoot for a day, right? That's the end. And if you were a producer producing that, you'd have a budget. You'd have 10 grand. Is that me? Where did I do that? How did I do that? Do you guys hear that?
No.
Oh, this is me. Sorry. This is me. Sorry. My own audio is happening in my background.
It's echoing.
I'm hearing my voice because I
hate that feeling.
I just did a video
it happens
voiceover,
sometimes.
and I have no idea where it's coming from. Anyway.
I work for a technology company and it still happens.
So what do you do?
I work for Procore Technologies out of Carpinteria.
Okay.
We have the largest base cloud software for project management and construction.
We have my partner and I have a good friend that works there as well.
Yeah, and that's the other good part about this, because the construction industry is trying to, there needs to be more diversified, put it that way. Not only from women, but also people of color, right? So that's one reason I chose, because it's amazing, man. It's technology and construction.
Yeah.
It's at the 2 mesh points, so it's perfect.
How long have you worked there?
And it's in the cloud, so it's cutting edge. I've been here 6 months, but I've been in this business for 20 years.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, project management, right? That is also a skill that we transfer to
that's
production,
huge within,
right?
That's transferable.
And it's transferable, right? I mean, what people don't know is I have a really good friend, he went and got his PMP certification. And once you have your PMP, you can be a project manager. Like you said, it's transferable.
Yeah.
You can manage this project, you can manage that project. And that's really the skills. If you think about a producer, right? A producer's a glorified project manager.
Yeah.
That's
because you got to keep people on task. You got to know, you got to understand what's going to creep in, what may upset your project, right? The cost.
On time, on task, on budget.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the game. I don't care how you look at it.
Yeah.
And those are skills that require accountability.
Yeah.
It requires a detail orientation, and it requires you to be able to walk through a process.
And
Right?
you know
A
what's
project
cool
manager's
about
always
it,
on it, you know?
Terrence, is now that now you have project management now, especially in technology, and it's creeping over even to talent, which I'm on the talent side, is agility, so agile.
Oh, I'm an
Scrum.
agile
So
salesperson.
you know, the old project management is the waterfall, right?
Yeah,
Now you get a team together like us, right? We get the agile, we get little sticky notes, and then we all come, and that's a whole discipline within itself, which will probably work best within the industry that you all are, the cinematography industry, because it moves so fast, and there's not going to be anything that's fluid within that business. You have to be able to move, adjust, meet again, move, adjust, meet again, and then also pivot at different times. So somebody that has the agile project management background will be great in this type of business to keep things moving, and that might be something that that I don't know, from an educational standpoint, they can look at to introduce you to the industry, et cetera.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You're onto something. So what's interesting is I learned agile methodology early on. I used to work for EMC as a consultant. I was at AT&T Sprint, and the only way we kept projects going was agile methodology. And I apply agile methodology to everything. So I'm a CRO at an AI company. We have projects, but from the sales perspective, I run our sales team with a daily scrum, just like you would. And so Scrum Master is a title that you would understand in tech, but I would argue that the Scrum Master doesn't exist in the production world. It sort of does, but there's generally that producer stuff, like it's in there, but it's not called that, and it's not transferable. So again, I think
what's it called in production, Terrence? The Scrum Master.
You know what, dude? It's
assistant
the producer or assistant
production
producer,
manager,
associate producer. Yeah,
production manager, associate producer. It's the person. Like we've always brought somebody in to say, hey man, you need a schedule, you need to run a show, you need to make sure you have all the assets. I mean, for me as a producer, it always falls on me because everybody always drops the ball, right? For me, I look up, you know, Kevin, we got to go buy stuff, figure out stuff because we didn't plan it, because there really isn't anybody else other than the producer willing to be ultimately accountable to make sure stuff gets shot. I would argue that what you're saying though, Gerard, is if we treat production and entertainment business like project management, more techie, more, by the way, that's where it's going, right?
Yeah.
You won't be able to survive unless you have this. I would argue, Kevin, this is probably a skill that's transferable that you could take from technology and other businesses that people understand, and we could be unique in applying it to how production happens. And I think it'll reinforce, to your point, I implemented Scrum and Agile methodology in a sales environment to make my team accountable. Yes. They have to talk to me every single day, and we can make small adjustments every day, so you're never surprised at the end of the week, the month, or whatever, right? That's the whole idea. I'm doing it to hedge risk. But that's what business and projects and I would argue entertainment has not had to necessarily do that, right?
Not yet.
$10 million budget. Not yet, but they're going to have to. They're going to have to, like, you're not going to be able to overrun by $1 million. You're not going to be able to just say, oh, by the way, we forgot this thing and I need more budget. You're going to have it down.
Especially virtual production. Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, people who deal with contingencies and deal with continuity and all these things that are going to creep up. And especially when you're trying to learn new methodologies. I mean, how do you find somebody who can be that mesh point for all these new things from legacy to new? Those are the things that you were talking about, Gerard, on the mesh, the METAVERSE thing yesterday. And you're in talent acquisition. That's what you said you were doing. Talent acquisition.
I'm in recruiting.
Oh, you're HR.
For 20 years,
Yes. Oh, man. How do you find, what are the skill sets necessary for you to impart on people who are educators and facilitators to find people who need to build those new skill sets for the person that you're looking for?
So I think the biggest thing for me is my approach, and I was watching a TED talk for some, a lot of people are ingrained in their own ways. They look at a resume, I don't have these skills, right? And I was a candidate where people had to look and dig, and I just wanted them to give me a chance to speak. And then they can see I had. I may not articulate it on paper, but they can see skills are transferable. So I just like to coach people up on you. Just because they don't have a specific background doesn't mean they can't be transferable. Similar to what Jay was talking about. Even though I'm in, and they were talking about it on METAVERSE, even though I'm in talent acquisition, you do have domain knowledge, right? So you can transfer that into products somehow. You know, it's a tough, I mean, maybe in the industry, like, because this is my first time ever dealing with the, the entertainment industry. They might be stuck in their old ways, and you have to dig them out of that. Hey, it's not going to continue to be like that. Because once you can get them out of that 100%. And understand that you have to pivot in order for you to, to blossom even further, you have to look outside of what the status quo will be. You can't, no matter what happens, if the entertainment industry keeps doing it, they will falter. And I have seen them since I've been looking at movies. It's not the same, because you can tell things are still the same. Even when you go see a movie, it's not the same. Some of the stuff they put out is not what it used to be. And which tells me that their industry is still stagnant, stale, stuck on some of the things they think makes them successful because of pride, because maybe they got so much money, they think they know it all. You really just have to shift paradigms and let them fall in their face. But at the same time, don't throw it in their face to say, hey, once they come back to you, say, hey, okay, now let's try this. And once it's successful, that's what I've seen has been successful for me throughout my career. Because people, even managers in IT that make $300,000-400,000, they may think they know it. Okay, we'll try it. When you're still looking for the same person a year later, well, let's try this, and then we fix that, or this process is different. Then they understand that you got to shift your paradigm, because once people get to that certain level, they think they still know it. And that's one reason I think mentorship is good for even folks.
I think the term is medieval. Things are very medieval.
Yeah, I didn't mean to keep going on, but you know what I mean? No. I think you guys all get the point now. And they can't do it. I mean, I think the reason, and I'll bring Tyler Perry up for just entertainment. I mean, he was told he couldn't do anything, right? From, I guess he got turned down early on, and now look what he's done for himself. You see what I mean? He pivoted, made something different, done it a little different. Even though, again, I'm not really well-versed in this industry, but there's something different that he's done to get himself from where he was making plays, living in the car, to where he's at now.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That issue exists still in the education part of it too. And that, I would argue, is the other piece, Terrence, of that question. Is what's missing is the education catching up to what's happening in the industry. Yeah. And the reality is entertainment is just like, in many ways, just like any other industry. You know, they need the accountants, they need the project managers, they need the marketing, you know, it's like everything exists there. And there's no education around those transferable skills in that way. So students will come to us and be like, well, I've only worked at a coffee shop for 3 years. And we're like, that's amazing experience.
Yeah, right.
You know how to deal with people, you know, like speed, all the things, you know, that come with that. And that education piece is missing and hard to implement, because it's a similar structure as the entertainment industry, and that people don't want to get out of their ivory towers and let go of these ideas that are no longer working.
I think you just hit it.
I want to apply this notion that I can pivot from what I planned on February 28th to something that we're hearing on this conversation, to something that's more critical for the needs of change, and change for things that could create some movement in our lifetime towards something that allows the students to learn some new skill sets. So I want to think that the February 28th abstract that we're still developing can be boiled down to an activity that can involve some students, but can share some things and showcase some things that they're learning and can present on February 28th virtually. I think that could be really what the opportunity is, because we have way too many resources to try to unpack on the 28th. So moving now,
I think you got to keep it tight, right? I mean, right now, Kevin, what we're talking about here is
this for the February 28th project, right?
Yeah.
And I need to touch base with you, Kevin, offline to catch up with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we're really trying to boil down what can we do on the 28th with the manpower, and with now a direction that I think really meets the needs of people who are struggling to figure out, again, what do I need to employ in my resume, in my skill set, to show that I can do something when maybe there is a roadblock, or there's a shortage of time or manpower. This is a case study, I think, where we can actually show what we did and have done to make some mentees more accountable to things that they can really say, hey, I was able to make some moves. And we've got we've got plenty of mentees. We just don't have the methodology to show to them something new and different than just linear production, pre-production to production.
Yeah, they want to exactly have that on their resume. And to your point, like Haley was saying, customer, you were a barista, customer service. Did you get awards? What was your, what did you make, something customer service oriented, right? Here's what we, in the corporate world, you have from a talent side, especially when I was from companies like Medtronic to Target to whatever, I've worked at both of those. They have this STAR interview method. Tell me about a situation, task, action, and the result. So that could also be transferable, right? Even though you're not in production, show me a time that you had to pivot on your role. So you're making three, as a barista, you're making 3 or 4 drinks. What happened to make you pivot? How'd you solve it, and how'd you get back to it? And what was the overall result of that experience? You know what I mean? Because the biggest thing in this business, I think in anyone, especially in this one, you have to pivot, because not everything, as Terrence said, and I could imagine, given the business, things aren't always going to be fluid. And they can't. It's probably one of the most non-fluid industries I'd imagine out there. So really showing them how you pivot would be huge for a lot of kids, or kids, adults, however you want to put it. I apologize. I'm in my 40s, so I can't believe I'm calling people kids now.
Hey, I'm with you. I'm in my 50s, man, and I'm still.
I used to be called a kid all the time. But yeah, it's just about pivoting. I think pivoting, from what I'm hearing, is huge, especially in this business. Because I couldn't imagine what goes on in these production room sets. Maybe they scrap the whole what do they call it, dialogue or whatever. You know what I mean? I'll learn the nomenclature soon, but maybe they scrap it. We got to start all over. You can't get frustrated. All right, let's get back to work. Yeah. Accountability. I didn't get my lines. I didn't memorize them.
There's an interesting fine line there. Apologies for interrupting you.
No, you're good. Sorry.
There's an interesting fine line there between pivoting and being flexible and abuse, right? And that's something also in the entertainment industry that's a thing that needs to shift, because a lot of entry-level folks do get really abused in their positions, and it's just not necessary anymore. Right? It's like it worked for whoever for however long, and that's just not the way that we need to continue that.
Okay.
So it's an interesting, especially with students, trying to educate about that, about you may be getting coffee for people for a while, but
just gotta stop at some point.
It reaches a point where personal work is different than working on a set and getting experience, and and there's value in being somebody's personal assistant as an entry point as well. I'm not saying anything about that, but getting what we are promised and not taking abuse for it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Haley, I think there's a conversation about, look, if you say medieval, I still suffer from some of the things that happened to me in the entertainment space 20 years ago. And there's a guy who gave me that "you'll never work in the city again" kind of line, high and mighty. He's still out there. And I saw his presence on LinkedIn, and I'm still heated, because that guy had a perspective, and unfortunately, for my world, when he said that, it was absolutely true. For his world, it wasn't. Now, I worked at a particular entity. There's no equity. There's no place. If you're at my place who you're not really, really secure in that game, meaning somebody doesn't really have your back, you're not a made person in Hollywood, you don't survive those kinds of things. And so the reality is the world is still very much archaic. I was literally having a conversation this morning about me meeting Ari Emanuel for the first time, and how he just laid it out. And he was like, and if you don't know Ari Emanuel, he's who they based Aria on an Entourage. His brother's Rahm Emanuel. Endeavor is his talent agency. But he's just known for being incredibly shrewd and incredibly brash or arrogant about the privilege. Oh, he's LA. He's I mean, and Endeavor is still a major company, and I'm not gonna back. You can't. I mean, that's you got CAA. Kevin knows the CAA.
William Morris.
We know those guys. All I would say is there is a structure in entertainment that is adverse to moving the power dynamic, and very set. The Weinstein scenario doesn't happen by accident, right? It's unfortunate, but I think if you talk about kids and education, or young people, or people trying to get in this business for the first time, I won't even call it kids. If I was trying to get it for the first time at my age, you're still gonna get disrespected. You're still not gonna get it, and you're only as good as how well you're vouched for, not necessarily based on your talent. There's certainly half the people aren't even qualified to make the decisions that they're making because they have no domain expertise, but they have power, they have money, they have
connections.
So those things will take somebody who is not very, like in technology, either you can code or you can't code. Doesn't matter. You know, it's white and black. In Hollywood, you may not know how to make a movie, may have never made a movie, but you got all the hookups and somebody blesses you with a budget to go make a movie, and all of a sudden you're a filmmaker. And it's unfortunate that you have somebody like Dana who went to school to be a filmmaker who doesn't get the opportunity that somebody just got given, not even a small opportunity. And so I don't know how we address that.
It's like the generation. It's like the generational wealth gap. You know, it's a systemic problem.
Well, and tech is really changing the game, luckily for that. However, who gets the tech?
Who gets the tech?
Same fucking people that are in it, right? It's like, so yeah.
Well, by the way, that's why I'm in tech. I'm at an AI startup on purpose. I left Redbox, public company, $600 million, now $250 million company based on their stock price. But I'm at a startup that's pre-seed. Like I came here from there because of exactly what you're talking about. Because guess what? Here, I'm on my own credibility. I stand on my own 2 feet. I know my technology. And if I say it, I know it and I do it. And that's more important to me than all the BS of somebody saying, hey, don't take my meeting because I worked at Redbox. And I'm more than willing to build myself up on that, but I have access to tech. I have access to something that people want, so they have to come to me. And so I know this because I've been around. So I prefer to put myself in the position where people have to come to me. Now I have to position myself that you need me, but I'd rather do that than have some de facto, hey, yeah, they'll take my call because I work at Redbox, but they have some expectation of what I'm doing. They have no clue who I am, right? They just care about my position and my influence at that organization. Here, jump off the no safety net, but the opportunity at my age and at my time, I'm 56 years old. There is not another opportunity. Hollywood's not going to make me a made man at 56. Corporate America is not going to give me what they're looking to say. Aren't you ready to retire? Give me a break. Retire? I ain't paid yet. I'm not that guy. So the point being, we have to expose that though. Somehow, some way, there is a better way, a better methodology, and I would love for to empower people to see. Here's how you can make in a digital world. Kevin, you know, digital has changed the game because we can be independent. We can produce a digital broadcast, and I do not rely on anybody else other than the people here with their willingness to show up and produce it. That's what's missing, though. We need to tell young people, here is the way you differentiate yourself and put yourself in this independent mindset so that you can rise to the top and get that opportunity.
At least give them an alternative. At least give them that idea that they can, you know, again, have another path, you know, if they're not hooked up or if they're not, you know, made nieces and nephews.
Look, I'll greenlight your stuff, right? I mean, we'll greenlight our own stuff just so you can start to get seen. It's just a matter of getting through that process so you can get seen. And we keep waiting for somebody else to greenlight that opportunity. And I'm suggesting, like, I don't look for anybody to greenlight, whatever, Kevin, you know, I'll show up with a camera, I'll shoot it, we'll produce it, and I pay for it out of my pocket. I don't care. But we have to empower young people to do that.
That we want to share by doing these kinds of project or challenge-based learning to performance-based learning. So that's really what it is that we're trying to do. So Haley, on the 28th, I'm going to reset by looking at a virtual event that will allow us to showcase some of the California State University alumni and students that we currently have in our database. And that will be the feature, the spotlight that I would like to put on the 28th so that we can at least see if we can get your participation virtually or any way we can. So
yeah, let's talk more about it this week, Kevin. I have to run for an 11 a.m. as well.
Hey, Haley, it was good to meet you.
Okay.
I'd like to reach out to you separately to learn more
Absolutely.
about what you're
I'll
doing
put my email in the chat here so you have it.
All right, and I'll send you a LinkedIn invite as well. You as well, Terrence.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, Kevin, we already connected. I want to connect with everybody just separately to learn more about the industry so I can add a lot more value as well.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, great, guys. So Haley, we'll send an open source way to look at resetting this thing for the 28th.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. It's so nice to meet all of you.
All right, thanks,
really
everybody.
Good to meet you, Gerard and Dana. Pleasure to meet you.
Good to meet you as well, Dana.
Nice to meet you both.
All right.
Bye.
Hi, Kevin.
Hey, Dana. So Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I had to leave my house really fast.
No problem.
But,
So I want to see if we can set a time for you that's comfortable for you, that you can make, so that I can introduce you to Terrence, and then have a live conversation about, you know, who Terrence is to me, and how when I said handing him off to you could be a move that has some context, so that I'm not just handing you off to him, but for production or for producer, I think Terrence will give you a better understanding of what our needs are. Okay.
okay.
All right.
Sounds
Thank
great.
you. All right,
Yes,
now.
thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.